Blame it on the they, blame it on the them, blame it on the she, he, and her, him, blame it on the proper pronouns, blame it on the proper pronouns, blame it on the Randy who became Sandy, blame it on the Ken who became Jim, blame it on the proper pronouns, blame it on the proper pronouns. Unlike T-Pain, Uncle KC does not need auto-tune. What an embarrassment. What an absolute embarrassment for Andy Cooper and CNN. And I'm not just talking about Andy being publicly admonished, publicly ridiculed for his abject failure of recognizing proper pronouns. I'm also talking about the fear, the terror that Andy Cooper felt in his response when he bowed his head and accepted his admonishment after being completely humiliated on live television. Ladies and gentlemen aspiring to be ladies, allow me to introduce you to Grace Thomas. According to the bio on Billy Wayne Justice Center for Public Interest, whatever the hell that is, Grace Thomas is an attorney that focuses on scholar civil rights and LGBTQ plus rights. LGBTQ plus? LGBTQ plus. I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't sound very inclusive to me. What about the I? What about the A? What about the other plus? And damn it, what about the @ sign? I can somewhat understand excluding the IA, but it is unforgivable to exclude the @ sign identifiers. The @ sign identifiers are crucial contributors to modern society. Of the millions and millions of emails that are sent every day, none of those emails would go through without the @ sign. This would be the equivalent of the post office excluding the stamp identifiers. The law was not the only thing that Grace Thomas studied in law school. When taking a break from the books, Grace Thomas found time to be a community organizer. Perhaps Grace was inspired by Brianna Stewart, the lead chef in the WNBA cafeteria known for her famous brie stew. When Grace was in the cafeteria, there wasn't enough room in the pot for brie stew because Grace was too busy making grits. Grace organized the community and founded something called GRITS, which stands for Getting Radical in the South. What happened to the good old-fashioned Butt Bongo Festival? The good old BBF? Why are deacons at Woke United Methodist constantly changing names and terminology? Grace was also a member of Texas Students for DEI and Law Students for Black Lives. I believe the organization used to be called Black Lives Matter, but I guess after the countless scandals, they decided to rename it Law Students for Black Lives. When I shared that picture of the lovely Grace Thomas, I didn't ask you guys to select proper pronouns. And there's a reason for that. I think it's safe to say that most reasonable people would assume that she, her pronouns are proper here. When you hear a name like Grace Thomas, most reasonable people would assume that Grace is female. I mean, how many dudes do you know named Grace? My grandmother was named Grace, and not one time throughout her life did she demand that I call her they. But while prepping this video, I did some research on Grace Thomas. While looking at the bio on Billy Wayne's website, I discovered that Grace Thomas prefers, or maybe even demands, to be addressed by they/them pronouns. Unfortunately for Andy Cooper and CNN, he was not as prepared as Uncle KC. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. As always, I appreciate your guys' support. It has been a rough week here on YouTube. Hell, it's been a rough few weeks. I was talking to my channel members last night about what's been going on. I was on an incredible run for the last 9 or 10 months, so I was expecting a downturn eventually. It's just part of the business. That's part of any business. When you're riding high for that long, you will eventually come down. And then you'll go back up again. But it doesn't make it any less miserable when I'm going through the natural downturns. Now, luckily, my ad revenue is above average right now. That definitely helps out a lot. But these downturns, they're never easy when you're going through them, and all I can do is just keep going. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys, the daily viewers and subscribers. You guys are carrying the channel right now. I damn sure appreciate your support. Wednesday night, Andy Cooper was hosting a town hall on CNN with Bernard Sanders. Bernie! Whether you love or hate him, whether you agree or disagree with Bernard, it's hard not to respect the guy. Bernie Sanders is no longer an aging fossil like his good friend Wolf Blitzer. Woof, woof, woof. Bernard has passed the point of aging. He is officially aged. But even at 83 years old, Bernie still has the energy of Big Red Joy Behar without the assistance of Botox. Wednesday night, Bernard was speaking with his good friend Andy about one of their favorite passions. Orange Man bad! At one point during the town hall, they decided to take a question from the audience. My inside sources are telling me that the live audience, it was significantly larger than the televised audience, which was somewhat surprising because it looks like this town hall was filmed in one of the WNBA's gyms. There might have been 5, maybe 600 people there. As they were taking questions from the audience, the lovely Grace Thomas stepped up to the microphone. Andy was introducing Grace Thomas to the crowd and the handful of people watching at home. And as he introduced Grace, Andy Cooper committed the heart-wrenching, devastating crime of misgendering. Watch for yourself.
I want to introduce Grace Thomas. She's a local civil rights attorney. She's a Democrat. Grace?
They, them pronouns, actually. Thank you.
Oh.
What the hell are we doing? What are we doing? Was it really necessary to correct Andy Cooper? Was it really that critical? It wasn't like Anderson Cooper was going out of his way to offend Grace Thomas. He was speaking naturally. I doubt he even thought about which pronoun he was using. Because when you look at Grace Thomas and you hear a name like Grace, your mind automatically assumes that Grace is a female. There was not a single person in that audience that assumed Grace Thomas was they. And that's what I think they're trying to do. They're trying to reprogram our minds. Some doofus named Tommy Christopher, or I don't know, maybe it's Tammy Christopher. Hell, at this point, who in the hell knows how they are choosing to identify? For all I know, Tom might be identifying as mom. But either way, Captain Doofus wrote a scathing op-ed for Mediaite where he claimed that everyone in conservative media was blowing this out of proportion. They don't understand the plight of this poor victim. Every day they are forced to correct people using improper pronouns. It gets so tiresome telling them that you're a they. How was Andy Cooper supposed to know that Grace identified as they? It's getting to the point that having your pronouns in your email signature is no longer enough. I guess identifiers will have to start walking around with name tags that illustrate their proper pronouns. Hi, my name is Ben. I'm she, her. Hey there, Ben. My name is Dandelion. I'm they, them. Speaking of email signatures, the American hero Scott Jennings, I am a real American. The American hero Scott Jennings addressed this absurdity the other night on CNN. He was once again featured with Abby Phillip, who remains the maybe temporary host of the show. The American hero was part of a panel that included the Yenta on The View that's married to the Pepperidge Farm guy, along with a couple of others whose identities remain unknown. Scotty was outlining his pet peeves, and he discussed people who include their pronouns in their email signature. I'm sure you guys have seen this before. Someone will send a long email, and at the end of the email, it'll say, "Thanks for your cooperation. Salutations, they, them." I once heard of an extreme case where someone forgot to include their pronouns in their email signature. The receiver of the email replied back asking which pronouns they preferred. The sender replied back notifying that they were no longer needed at the company. But anyway, Scott Jennings addressed this absurdity the other night. Watch it for yourself.
More than 15 seconds at the coffee creamer bar at the coffee shop, straight to El Salvador. 2 or more walking side by side on a sidewalk, you're gone, El Salvador. Recline your seat on an airplane, El Salvador. Disney adults, you're going too. And finally, pronouns in your email signature, out of here.
You know, I thought we were getting past this. I thought this issue had been somewhat resolved. For a couple of years, it seemed like we were talking about men aspiring to be women and the pronouns they prefer multiple times a week. But leading up to the election last year, it seemed like this was really no longer a mainstream topic of conversation. We would hear about it every now and then, but it wasn't constant. As soon as the Trumper made it federal law that men were no longer allowed to compete in women's sports, a law that you would think would resolve the issue and put it to rest. Ever since the law was enacted, it seems like deacons at Woke United Methodist have once again made this their primary talking point. Me personally, I don't understand it. This is literally one of the reasons that the Democrats lost the election. But for some reason, they can't seem to let it go. They have no problem letting the cucumber go so they can achieve their dream of becoming an All-American in women's basketball, but they just can't seem to let the issue go. It's like they're intentionally sabotaging themselves. Give me your thoughts on this. Andy Cooper corrected on live television. He refers to Grace Thomas as she, and Grace immediately corrects Andy and lets him know, "I'm not she, I'm they." Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.